Hi, everyone. Jim Beneman checking in with CBS 4 Sports' Michael Spencer. We're talking about the big Broncos story of the day. The local favorite, Phillip Lindsay, no longer a Denver Bronco. Are you surprised?
Not really. I do think that there are a lot of people who are looking at this saying that the Broncos did Phillip Lindsay wrong, right? There's no doubt that Phillip Lindsay is a fan favorite. He's from Denver. He went to CU in Boulder, was an undrafted rookie, came in, made the team, had a 1,000-yard season, went to the Pro Bowl, the first undrafted player to ever do that. There is a ton, first undrafted offensive player to ever do that, I should say. There's a ton of reasons why Broncos country fell in love with Phillip Lindsay. I don't think anybody's going to argue that point. But, Jim, I really look at this, and I think that this is a decision. They're calling it a mutual agreement to go their separate ways, basically. I think it's a decision that can be beneficial for both sides.
Yeah.
You look at last year. Phillip Lindsay wasn't used in the proper ways in that Broncos offense, right? This is a guy who in 3 seasons has had 3 different offensive coordinators during his time with the Broncos. They put the low round tender on him, which basically meant that if a team came in, they could offer him a little bit more than $1 million a year. And if he left, the Broncos would get nothing in return. What this does is it allows Phillip to go wherever he wants at this point, and the Broncos will have no say. So I think it's
they can't match the offer.
The Broncos don't have the opportunity to match the offer anymore. They did, and I think Phillip's representatives went out, probably didn't get necessarily the numbers that they thought they might get, went back to the Broncos and said, hey, can we do something here to just call it good, right? We appreciate the 3 years. Let us go now and see what else we can get on the open market. I think the Broncos said, okay, go ahead. So I think this in the long run can be good for both sides. I know there's a lot of fans who are upset, and rightfully so. But I think that this is actually a good decision for the Broncos, and in the long run can be a good decision for Phillip Lindsay as well.
You know, and one thing we know about pro sports is that as fans, there is sentimental value that we have for some players. If you're running a sports franchise, there probably is not a whole lot of room for sentimentality.
No, for sure, because it is a business at the end of the day. And we saw the Broncos decided to bring in Mike Boone, a guy who was in Minnesota with new GM George Payton. They brought him in yesterday, and he'll be officially introduced here in just a little bit. But the Broncos are ready to move on from Phillip Lindsay, and I think that the hope would be that Phillip Lindsay can move on and advance somewhere else. The other part of this, Jim, running backs aren't valued as highly as they have traditionally been.
We were talking yesterday about how analytics has gotten involved in football.
Yes, teams are no longer paying running backs big money because it doesn't end up being a good return on investment for a lot of times. And this is a guy in Phillip Lindsay who was banged up a little bit last year, only played in 11 games. There are, I think, maybe some injury concerns when you look at his body type and how he might progress through the next couple of years in the NFL. I personally think he's got 2 to 3 good years left, but the average lifespan for an NFL running back is just a little more than 3 years. I think the Broncos also looked at that and said, hey, look, it might be better for us to come to an amicable decision to part ways with Phillip Lindsay, and that's what we got to today.
One more question. We talked about, you know, last year maybe they didn't use him properly. Gordon had come in, had to figure out a way to get touches for him. Going forward, what is a good environment? What's a good offense for Phil Lindsay in terms of catching the ball, running the ball, how many carries? How should they use him?
I think that he is best used in space, right? We saw that when during his time with the Broncos when he was really successful. He is best used when he has speed, right? Phillip's a smaller running back. That's no secret. You don't want him running up the middle 20, 30 times a game. That's not where he's at his best. You want to get him out in space. Hopefully he improves his pass catching ability, which is something that he had worked on prior to last season. Hopefully that continues to improve. He can go to a place and be really successful if they use him as a third down back, out of the backfield, out on the edges, running outside the tackles. I also think, Jim, that the Broncos are going to have to look at getting a second running back now. Because Mike Boone, who they brought in, has primarily been a special teams guy in Minnesota. So I think that they're going to have to do something to get Melvin Gordon a second running back and a different partner back there in the backfield. I think they might look at free agency. More than likely, I think that happens in the draft, though.
Yeah, all right. Obviously, diehard fans. Sorry to see Phil Lindsay go.
It's disappointing.
And so are you and the folks in the sports office. A great kid to interview.
Yes.
Does well in the community. Just a nice young guy.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun to be around and was always really gracious with his time and wishing nothing but the best moving forward.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And thanks for joining us.